Hi, Sierra here. Today I wanted to talk to you about Peperomia plants, what they are, how to take care of them, and how to propagate them. So let's get started. So, these cute little plants, a lot of the popular species, they're coming from the tropics, South America. They really like warm temperatures and humidity, well-drained soil. There's other species that are more succulent varieties, and they'll take a cooler environment. But I think a lot of the Peperomia that people are buying these days are more on the tropical side. So let's talk about care. Soil. These plants are going to want a well-drained soil. So if you're using a regular potting mix, add something chunky in there to break it up a little bit. Make sure that the water is draining all the way out. That goes for a lot of tropical plants, Peperomia included. So add perlite, pumice, you could add orchid bark, kind of break it up a little bit so that that water is not sitting on top. You don't want the water sitting on top of the soil. And you also don't want it getting kind of muddy and staying wet. Next thing, water. You don't want to overwater these guys. You don't want them sitting in water. A lot of these species are more on the epiphytic side. So, they're going to expect to get watered a lot in the rainforest, but then they're not going to be sitting in water after that. So water probably 1 to every 10 days, depending on your environment. And make sure all that water is drained out. It's not sitting inside. If you have a plastic pot inside of a ceramic, you can just put some rocks on the bottom, and that way you just make sure that it's not sitting in that extra water. And then I'll just come through once in a while and dump that out. One note on watering. If you notice, I tend to underwater, but if you notice that your plant's leaves are drooping, getting very sad looking, there's a couple things that might be going on. So this is Peperomia frost, and when it's dry, it's looking very, very wilted. But ironically enough, after I water it, it's still looking wilted. Well, a lot of times the nurseries are potting up just in plain straight peat moss, and that peat moss can get really compacted. So when that happens, the plant is drying out, and then it's also then sitting in the water because the soil is compacted. So I think with this guy, he's going to need a repot. We'll be doing that at some other point. Light. So Peperomia can do with a lower light. Like most tropical rainforest plants, they're going to want bright, filtered light. But they can handle lower light situations. So if you have that hard to find, got that spot that's kind of a little bit darker, you could try it there and see how it does. Last thing is fertilizer, and you can dilute your fertilizer, maybe half strength, fertilize once to twice a month during the growing season. This is pretty much standard for most tropical houseplants. Some of them like a lot more fertilizer, but for the majority of them, I think that that's fine. So spring through fall, and that's it. You could fertilize a little during winter, just way less, because that's their dormant time. All right, so now we're going to talk about propagation. There's many different ways to propagate Peperomia. And, you can use water propagation, soil propagation. You can use different parts of the plant. They're fairly easy to propagate. So this makes it fun. I'm going to show you how to propagate a leaf cutting. I actually had a piece of a leaf just fall off of the plant, so that's perfect. It's a good looking leaf, so I can use that one. And I'll walk you through the steps. Okay? Let's watch. All right, so here we have a couple of the plants that I'm going to chop up. The Peperomia pilea is actually a little bit taller than I would like, and they tend to get taller and taller, kind of lanky. So I'm gonna cut the top off of that one. So my scissors have been sterilized, do not worry. Make sure you spray them off with some hydrogen peroxide or something like that before you do this. So I'm gonna cut right below a leaf. It's a little scary doing that. And that's what I have left. So I can put this into water, or I can soil propagate it, or I can do both. I can take some leaves off and propagate those, as well as propagate the stalk. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. So I'm going to remove a few of the bottom leaves, and they usually just pull off. And I'm going to keep at least 2 of the upper leaves. So all these ones I'm going to be planting into soil. I think I'm going to leave this little crown. So that's the crown that I'll propagate in water. I might pull off a couple more leaves if there's not enough stalk there, so we'll see. On my old plant right here, there will be new growth coming out of this, so I'm not too worried about that. And I left enough of the plant. The plant is doing well, it should be fine. If you take too much of your plant and propagate too much, you could damage your mother plant or the original plant. So now I have these little leaves with the petiole. This little stem is called the petiole. And to propagate them in soil, I'm going to want to cut the petiole down a little bit. You want to leave about little over 2 centimeters of stem. So and I'm actually going to leave the last 2 for water propagation as well, these 2. So those will all be water propagated. All right, so I prepared some soil already, and that's a well-draining soil that I use for most of my tropical plants. And I got it nice and wet. That's pretty important. Well, now I'm just going to place the leaves in there. Okay, so the main thing with these ones is that the soil stays moist, and I will put those in a little humidity dome. And my humidity dome is a very, very special one that I bought for like 99 cents. It's just a plastic container. And these little guys are going to sit inside. I'm going to spray them off, get them a little bit more wet. Place their dome on top of them, and then those will go in a spot with good indirect bright light. If it's too much sun, it will burn them, so be careful. All right, so moving on, I'll just show you the other ones, water propagated, super easy. It'll be right back. Okay, so for water propagation, it's pretty simple. It's basically, stem cutting or leaf cutting. Stem cutting is going to have, more strength in it, more power to create a new plant. And you do not want the leaves sitting in the water. So if I was to dunk this one way down and the petioles were sitting in the water, it's probably okay, but there's a new leaf right there. So I really don't want that sitting in the water. So I'm going to kind of tilt it to the side so that little leaf that's on top doesn't get wet. For these two, I'm just going to snip them a little bit and drop them in to here, and then wait. These will typically take longer than the soil propagation. Thanks for coming with me on that Peperomia journey. It was amazing, and I'm so glad you were there with me. Thanks again. I hope that was entertaining and informative. Subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.